around science.
The Science of Society with Elder Darryl Waistline Mitchell.
But you know, like in our country, we talking about a mass uprising. We talking about 40 to 60 million people in protest over a lengthy period of time that shakes up and changes the system. Donald Trump, his fascist troops already did a run at insurrection on January the 6th, just to see what could happen and things like that. So we move closer and closer to a very volatile situation where we'll be able to talk about transferring political power in this country. And we're a lot closer today than we were 20 years ago. Lots of changes have taken place, you know, in the country and the thinking of the people. Most of the young people nowadays embrace some form of socialism. And that's a tremendous step, right? But we faced with a crafty enemy. Like, I remember the movement in Ferguson, if I may jump back for a minute. You know, with Mike Brown, his foul murder and things like that. It was out of Ferguson that the hashtag Black Lives Matter blew up and became prominent. What a lot of comrades and friends don't know is that two forms of movement emerged in Ferguson. BLM, Black Lives Matter, and the other movement was called Hands Up, Don't Shoot. Hands Up, Don't Shoot was isolated and crushed. Black Lives Matter was funded and became an appendage of the Democratic Party, you know. You had these articulate, intelligent sisters, black women, right, who did a lot of the pioneering work on it, but, you know, it's totally reformist and bourgeois. You know, it's part of the system. And I'm not saying it shouldn't have happened. I'm simply saying that two forms of movement arose. One called Hands Up, Don't Shoot, and other called Black Lives Matter. And we are reaching another point where that form of movement, Black Lives Matter, is becoming irrelevant because it's not speaking to some deep-seated needs of the proletariat in our country. And I call it the proletariat because that's what it is, man. When I look at America, I don't see an African fucking working class. I don't see just an Anglo working class. I'm telling you, I see a multinational working class that's composed of different colors. And within the working class in this country, you have a black section, you know, and that black section is composed of various type of peoples.
Do you really think that racism will be resolved at some point? Because it doesn't appear that it's gonna happen in our lifetime.
You know, like it depends on what you mean by the word racism. Now,
when I say racism, I'm talking about
white supremacy.
I don't even like to say white supremacy, but white control and domination of other groups.
See, like, I don't think that's what we face with. I think what we face with is a class of people who are white that controls the reproduction of daily life. Once you take that reproduction of daily life, the control over things away from this class of capitalists, and you set up a system where you have less and less people, man, that can interfere with how you live. That's how you defeat the racism, the white racism in particular, right? Because if we use the concept of racism, we talk, it's bigger than just white. You know, but you can defeat what I call white supremacy, right? And I call it supremacy because supremacy is a social force with the power to deploy human labor, machinery, resources, energy to accomplish production and goals in society. If you have the social force to do that, you have the power. It's called supremacy. Racism, in my view, is a bourgeois concept, man. Humanity is not composed of different races. That's just, I mean, it's not. They've proven that. If it's not, and we agree that races really don't exist, then why do we use it? And it's a reason, like, you know, the bourgeoisie tell you it's a social construction. What is a social construction, right? All these are different forms of thinking created by the bourgeoisie. I remember when social construction was created. I was born into a world that used the concept of racism, you know, which, you know, is a justification for slavery, for beating people down. It wasn't that we were inferior. We got beat, sold out and beat up, and were enslaved. You know, if we had bigger guns and military means, we wouldn't have never allowed ourselves to be enslaved. But I'm just saying, yes, we can solve the question of deep entrenched poverty and destitution amongst Black people. Just because more white people are in it, don't speak to the question of the color factor. In history, we face the color factor, but it's deeper than just white. The color factor erupted out of Africa 10,000 years ago, when color meant advancement. Color, Black meant peak, top, zenith of civilization, master of sciences. I mean, we face the color factor in different forms for different reasons. The conquest appeared as a wave of lighter skinned people, for real. Not at first, not all at one time. But I'm just saying, we got to set things up in a way that makes sense.